Welcome into the show. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr. Appreciate all of you for being here with us. Let's talk some quarterbacks on the show today. Some takeaways from what NFL insider Albert Breer had to say about Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold to Colin Cowherd on the herd. But first, I want to hear from you down in the comment section. And this is today's poll question. We want to hear from everybody. It is also our pinned comment, so make sure you get those responses in. Who is the best quarterback on this team right now? Is it Purdy? Type B. Is it Lance? Type T. Is it Sam Darnold? Type S. Let us know down in the comment section right now. So, Albert Breer, a lot of interesting things to say about the 49ers quarterback situation, and he might be right on some of them. I think he's off the mark on a couple of other comments. Is Sam Darnold really quarterback number 2, and is he going to back up Brock Purdy, relegating Trey Lance to the third-string position? Here's what Albert Breer had to say about Sam Darnold here. I think if Brock Purdy were unable to take the first snap of training camp, and that's certainly a possibility, he's on a track to play week 1, but they're still building the strength in his arm back up. I think Sam Darnold might take the first snap of training camp. Now, it doesn't mean Trey Lance can't come back and work his way forward, but I think that they feel like they've already given this guy a lot of chances. Let's focus in on that last line there. Albert Breer saying, the 49ers feel as though they've given Trey Lance a lot of chances. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And if that is the case, if that is the thinking from this organization, has Trey Lance played enough to necessarily determine that? If the Niners think that they've given Trey Lance enough chances, how is 4 starts enough to basically determine what type of quarterback he is in the National Football League? Let's talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of Trey Lance. He's an intriguing athlete at 6'4", 225. He does have a strong arm. He's pretty mobile, even though his athleticism has been a little bit underwhelming. He's a solid runner with the football. I'm not sure he'll ever be the runner that he was at North Dakota State, but he does have a good pocket feel and pocket mobility, in my opinion. If you watched some of those 3+ starts, basically 3+, there were 4 officially, but he got hurt so early in that Seahawks game week 2. When the pocket broke down around him, he didn't revert his eyes down. He kept his eyes and his head up, looking to throw the football. Then he ran it on last resort. But he felt some bodies around him in that pocket. So I actually do like the pocket feel and the pocket mobility of Lance. And he's still young. You can still mold him into a solid player in this league. He's only 23 years old. But with those strengths, Trey Lance does have some weaknesses as well. Lack of experience, big concern. Accuracy, more of a concern. Layering throws is an issue because I'm not sure he has a lot of touch on his throws, which sometimes that is required to complete balls to that second and third level over the outstretched hands of a linebacker, a defensive back. You get the idea. Lance, also entering year 3, has already been banged up and injured a lot, and he can give you a lot of wow plays, but he also misses a lot of layups, which are really important in running Kyle Shanahan's system. You look at Lance's numbers in 4 career starts, and I understand that he hasn't thrown the football all that much, but the completion percentage is no doubt a problem at sub 55%. Passing yards, 797, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, 235 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. It's a lack of experience, and it's the lack of consistent accuracy from Lance, which has kept him, in my opinion, from seeing the field consistently. And that's the biggest thing I think that the coaching staff has as far as their issues with Lance so far as he goes into a pivotal year 3. Now, if you want to talk some Niners, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm on Twitter at Chase_Senior, on Instagram at Chase_Senior. Don't be a stranger. Slide in the DMs. Say what's up. You can agree with what I have to say. You can disagree with me. Either way, let's talk. We also have a great deal that we want to tell you about with 4th of July coming up right around the corner at the start of next week. 49ers 4th of July shirts on sale right now, and they're available using that link right below me. chatsports.com/49ersusa. Get hooked up and celebrate America and rep your football team in the process. Chatsports.com/49ersusa. More from Albert Breer on Lance here. The kid Lance needs to play. And this is sort of the conundrum that the San Francisco 49ers are in. He just hasn't played a lot of football, period, since high school. He played one full year in college. The COVID year basically canceled his third year in college. He redshirted as a freshman. Then he goes into the pros, and he's redshirted his rookie year. So we're talking about now like a 5-year period if you include last year when he was hurt, where he's only really played one full season of football, so he needs to see snaps. So the ideal thing would be to just throw him out there and live with his mistakes. But that's what the Niners were going to do last year, and that ship has sailed. They know how good they are. They know the window that they're in. They know they've got one of the most talented rosters in football. And so at this point, they don't really feel like they can throw a season overboard in the name of Trey Lance's development. So the two big issues here that continue to come to the forefront for Lance, it's the inexperience and it's the inaccuracy. An issue that I have with the Niners thinking here, as well as what Albert Breer had to say, the 49ers 2 years ago made it to the NFC Championship game. So coming off that NFC Championship game in which they had that 10-point lead over the Rams going into the fourth quarter, they were willing to have a subpar year last year and go through some of the growing pains with Lance last year, but they're not willing to do it this year. Is that because John Lynch is thinking about life after football? Because there's been some rumblings of that. Maybe Adam Peters takes over. Is it Kyle Shanahan feeling the pressure of not being able to bring home that vaunted Lombardi trophy yet, and he feels as though he needs to win that ring for his career to be legitimized? These could be issues, but if the Niners are saying, look, we were willing to live with the mistakes 2 years ago, but not this past year and not this year, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now, I can tell you this, that the Niners probably really like what they saw with Lance coming out of North Dakota State because his passing numbers were really, really good. The issue, though, is that he only played one full season at North Dakota State, as Albert Breer pointed out, as we've continued to talk about here on the show. He did complete 65% of his passes. That's good. For nearly 3,000 yards. 30 touchdowns, 1 interception. But the discrepancy here, only 19 games. His rushing numbers were absurd as well. 184 carries, more than 1,200 yards. Average yards per carry, 6.9 to go alongside with 16 touchdowns. So Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the Niners front office probably saw those numbers. They turned on the game tape. And they knew that Trey Lance went to North Dakota State. By no means a powerhouse when it comes to football, right? But the ability is sometimes what sucks up these front offices because they can't help themselves when they see 6'4", 225, the passing numbers, the rushing numbers, and the athletic profile as well. You can see why the Niners were intrigued by Lance. It just hasn't worked out so far. More from Albert Breer, really on the grand scope of the Niners quarterback situation here. Now you're talking about something different. You're not talking about developing the best quarterback for the playoffs. You're talking about the guy who can keep you best afloat for a month, right? That would probably be Sam Darnold over Lance at this point, even if Lance has the higher ceiling. So I think a lot of different things are going into this, and it makes it much different than last year when the idea was we're going to sink or swim with him. We're going to ride out his bumps in September and October with the hope that we got a better quarterback than we had by the time January comes around. You can certainly question how the Niners have managed Lance. They drafted him number 3 overall. They moved up to take him. They mortgaged some draft capital to do so, 3 first-round picks to be exact. He couldn't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo, and then they bring Garoppolo back last year, which puts some pressure on Trey Lance. He ends up getting hurt. He gets replaced by Garoppolo. Brock Purdy comes in after you drafted him. Obviously, you had some questions about Lance. If you signed Garoppolo and you drafted Brock Purdy, and then throughout this offseason, they never made a definitive statement that Lance was going to be their guy. They never definitively said that they were not going to trade Trey Lance either. I just think it's fascinating that the Niners really don't know what they have yet in Lance, or can you look at it from the other side where they're like, look, we know him better than anybody else. We've seen him practice more so than anybody else, and we know that he might lack what is required to be a consistent quarterback in this league because he can't consistently complete some of the throws that are required to run Kyle Shanahan's offense. This Sam Darnold buzz does seem to be real. You think about it, They signed him on the first day of NFL free agency. They obviously had in mind that they wanted to bring him in prior to free agency because that deal was basically a handshake deal under the table before it became official. And Sam Darnold certainly has a lot of ability. And I've said this about Kyle Shanahan. If he can maximize the C.J. Beathard, if he can maximize the Nick Mullins, if he can maximize a Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, and take Jimmy G to a Super Bowl and hide him up until that point in 2019, can he do the same with Sam Darnold? I think that the trends are a little bit alarming since coming into the league in 2018 because he's gone 21-34 as a starter. The mistakes that he's made with the football are not ideal. They can be killer. 61 touchdowns, 55 picks. He's been last in passer rating among quarterbacks qualifying during that time, 78.2. Last in completion percentage. Third worst interception percentage since coming into the league. Last in air yards per attempt and fourth worst in yards per attempt. So obviously some glaring weaknesses with the game of Sam Darnold. Take another guess here. Who will start for the Niners in week 1? Drop me a name. Appreciate everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.